Paul, I can see you in the UK. Are you with us?
Yeah, definitely, definitely loud and clear, and it's been a beautiful, hot and sunny day. It's been amazing. Hottest day in 53 years, apparently, for this time of year.
You're kidding me.
Nah, nah,
In the
20,
UK.
22 degrees or something.
Oh, wow. Same as
And
here in Auckland.
it's going to be 6 degrees next week, so it doesn't matter.
Oh. And Nassim, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here in equally as warm and humid Auckland.
That's excellent. Good to see. And we're also wanting Hillary, our infrastructure expert. Hillary, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Ah, nice to see you, Hillary. Good to see you
Nice to see you too.
on the North Shore. Fantastic. So, hi everybody. Sorry for the slight delay in getting online. I hope you're still with us. Yes, I can see quite a few people from all over the world joining us for this 30-minute, very succinct webinar on how to move to New Zealand and specifically in the infrastructure space. My name is Scott Matheson. I'm the founder of Working In, and we've got three excellent panelists with us today to take you through what's happening in New Zealand, what the opportunities are, and how you can make your first move. Now, my assumption is that most of you will know a little bit about New Zealand. So this is not about talking about New Zealand or selling New Zealand or whatever you want to call it, right? There's plenty of information out there to find out about New Zealand, and many of you in our experience have already been here, have relatives here, friends here, so you know about that. So let's just assume that you know that this is a wonderful place to live. New Zealand tops the OECD tables on many, many factors around life and quality of life, and that's why we all live here. We're a small country of 5 million people in the South Pacific, and years ago we used to feel isolated, but with Zoom technology and such and so forth, we don't. And hence it's becoming increasingly popular. And the reason that we're having an infrastructure specific webinar is because of COVID. Our government is only letting specific people through the border. One, health people, and two, some infrastructure people. So there's a window of opportunity for people who are in the infrastructure space to be here. So to get on, because we've got half an hour and we don't want to take up your time wherever you are in the world, just want to introduce you to our panelists. First, in the UK, Paul Goddard, who's was working in for many, many years. Paul, can you say a few words, please?
Yeah, my name's Paul Goddard. For those of you who don't know, I actually lived in New Zealand for 18 years up until very recently. Moved to New Zealand in 2003. Been helping people in this industry for probably over 10 years now, 10 years or more. As somebody who's been through the process and helped lots of people do it, I look forward to getting the opportunity to talk to some of you one to one, which we can talk about later.
Thanks, Paul. You're vastly underestimating your experience, though, because I think that you've been doing this for like 18 years.
Oh, yeah, 10 years. Time flies.
Time flies, okay. Thank you. And Nassim Lalazari, lead migration agent in our Auckland office. Nassim.
Hi, everyone. My name's Nassim. I'm a licensed immigration advisor here in New Zealand. So what that means is that I have gone through a course and I've got registration or licensing with the Immigration Advisors Authority here in New Zealand. That means that myself and along with Paul, we're able to provide you with advice and information about immigration and visas for New Zealand. And we've got to go through a process every year to make sure that we're at the right level and we're providing you with the best possible information and details about a move to New Zealand. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because it takes up a lot of our times to make sure that we're up to date with policy and getting our license renewed all the time. It also provides you as potential migrants with a lot of protection because it ensures that you're dealing with someone who's had to basically go through the ringer with different government agencies to make sure that we're the right people to be assisting you today.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Nassim. And that's a very, very valid point for any of you, whether you're using us or anybody else to protect yourself in this whole process, which is basically a once in a lifetime process. You're not going to do it again. Using a licensed immigration advisor is probably our main advice. And finally on the panel today, our infrastructure expert based in Auckland also, Hilary Bonham. Hilary, can you say a few words, please?
Yes, thanks, Scott. Hi, everybody. My name's Hilary, and yes, I'm the International Recruitment Manager for Infrastructure here at Working In. I've been at Working In for quite a few years now, working alongside Scott and the team. And my key role is to help people like you who are on their journey of moving to New Zealand to be successful in finding the job. So a key part of your journey. And I definitely understand your motivations for wanting to move here. As Scott said, it's a great country. So there's not only great work opportunities, but also the great lifestyle too. I'm proud to call it my home. And it's awesome that you're listening today to find out how we can help you make that a possible move.
Awesome. Thanks, Hilary. Yeah, look, and on that note, I just want to say to everybody who's listening today, you know, kind of congratulations for being here. Migration, immigration is a massive move. It's really huge and it is life-changing. It's full of challenges, but it's full of rewards. And even being here on this webinar, taking this first step is the beginning of a change in your life. And it takes a huge amount of dedication to do something like this. And so I guess we just congratulate you all because it's a massive move, but push yourself out there, you'll get the rewards. So let's crack into it right now. I think probably the first and foremost is COVID. COVID has changed everything for the world. New Zealand at the moment is COVID-free in the community and has been for many weeks. In fact, you probably know for well over a year, we've managed to deal with it as an island nation very well. And as a consequence, our economy, believe it or not, has grown. When we thought it was going to dip, it's actually grown. And the government is putting a huge amount of money and investment into infrastructure, in particular, to make sure that post-COVID, we're in a good position. So what does that mean from an immigration perspective? Well, it does mean that there's skills shortages, and Hilary will talk about this a little bit later, but in the infrastructure area, we had skills shortages anyway. New Zealand has always been reliant on labour from offshore because New Zealanders travel and leave our shores. So we have a shortage, and the COVID environment has exacerbated that. So as we continue to roll out new infrastructure planning, there are massive shortages in businesses. And at the moment, many of them think that they can't bring people through. And after COVID or post-COVID, the demand is phenomenal. So that's why we're talking to you now, because there's a lot of pent-up demand. The issue, though, of course, is that you need a job to get a visa. You need a visa to get a job. And this is something that Paul Goddard can explain in a little bit more detail. Paul, can you sort of take over from here on this point?
Yeah, it's the catch-22 that I'm sure people will have heard about. I know I can see some of our clients are in the room, and there's a lot of new people in the room, which is great. So anybody who's tried to sort of look at jobs in New Zealand will see immediately that most jobs advertised say you need a visa to apply for this role, or you need residence, or you need the right to work in New Zealand to apply for this role. And it just throws up a big brick wall in front of you straight away. And it exists because of the doubt and fear that's in the employer's mind. You need a visa, you need a job offer to get a visa, but your CV, if you're just randomly firing off a CV, which we absolutely don't advise anybody to be doing, then basically your CV lands on an employer's desk. They look at your CV, they might think, hey, this guy looks great, you know, and if he was here right now and he had a visa, I'd give him a job, but he's not. And I don't know if he's going to get here. I don't know when he's going to get here. I don't know what I've got to do as an employer so he can get here. I've heard it's difficult. I've heard it takes time. And you can see there's a lot of reasons for an employer not to engage with you if you haven't reached out to them correctly. So the catch-22 exists, and the secret to removing it is to remove the barriers that stop the employer moving forward.
Yeah, look, it's a very good point. And until we've kind of gone through this process with you, we strongly recommend you not to apply, just re-emphasizing what Paul said. And it's not because of you, it's just because of the employers not actually understanding immigration process and being quite insular and internally New Zealand focused at the moment. So please don't go and spray out CVs. It will be detrimental to you. And we'll explain even more detail later. Naseem, our lead immigration advisor, can now talk to us a little bit about the visa options, the temporary visa options, and permanent residency, which is what most people are looking for. Naseem.
So obviously at the moment, the New Zealand borders are closed. So the applications that can be made from offshore are currently limited. But I'll come back to the border exemption in a second. But the rest of the visa policies basically are currently in process. They, it's still business as usual, so to speak, and we're still lodging those applications here in New Zealand. And what that looks like is either a temporary visa or a residence class visa, depending on the specific offer of employment that you have and then the pathway that's been identified for you. So we're still lodging essential skills visas, work to residence visas, long-term skills shortage visas. So those are the temporary visas, and those have a limited time. They're anywhere between 6 months to 3 years, again, depending on the policy and the specific job offer. And then you've also got your residence class visas, the most common being the skilled migrant category, which is a points-based system, and one that the government, even while we're in COVID, has identified is the main path that they want everyone to qualify for residence. So under that particular immigration policy, you get points for your age, your qualifications, your job offer, your work experience. And if you've got a partner, any additional benefits that the government has identified that they can bring. So such as a skilled job offer for them, or if they've got relevant or high qualifications as well. So that's the normal lay of the land. And now because of COVID, we've got this added layer, which are the border exemptions. Now, as Scott mentioned earlier on, there are still people that are able to enter into New Zealand while the borders are closed. And you either, most people that are currently entering, and we met with Immigration New Zealand yesterday, who showed us some stats on this, is that those that are critical health workers are still able to enter if we can show that they meet the policy requirements. And a few of our clients have, along with Paul's, have come in under that those instructions recently. And then the other one that was also mentioned earlier is those that are other critical workers in the infrastructure space. So for those of you that are here today that are in occupations in the infrastructure space, you're quite lucky as well. You've got your own little niche opportunity in order, if you do get the right job offer, to enter New Zealand while the borders are closed. And again, we've been able to get individuals through on those instructions as well. Then once you're here, it's those, business as usual visas that I just spoke about.
Thanks, Naseem. So just to qualify what you were saying here, there's temporary visas, which is a work visa mainly, which is based on a job offer. And then there's a residence visa, which will lead to permanent residency and eventually citizenship. And that's based on points, which is your qualifications, your work experience, your job offer, and other factors as well. I'm very much simplifying it, I know that. And then finally, we have the border exception, which is currently taking place at the moment, where you have to make a special application to have your visa essentially approved to come through the border. Yeah, okay, thank you. So I do have some more questions, I'm sure the people do as well, but I'd like to move on to Hilary now, because Hilary, you're talking to employers all the time, you're on the ground, you've got a very strong feel for where the demand is right now and in the future. Can you just tell us what what the lay of the land is, what the demand is, what the skills that are needed, and,
sure.
and what the environment's like?
Sure. So it definitely is a great time to start this process now, guys. And like what Scott was saying before, the government's invested billions, around 15 billion on projects that we're going to see available in the space for years to come. So your long-term future in New Zealand is definitely secure. And as Naseem said, there is space being set aside for people with border exemptions being able to come through in this space, which is awesome. Obviously, that's not going to be relevant for all of you. So there will be some roles where we won't be able to help secure your role until the borders ease, but the time is now to start the process. So you know where you're at with your visa, and then I start talking to you about what job opportunities are here. The government project list is huge. They've approved projects throughout the whole country, and that includes our roading, our railway system. There's big investment into new and redevelopments of our hospitals, our schools, community housing, and more. So the list goes on. So we really, as a small country of 5 million, we just don't have enough skills in this space to help secure these projects even happening, getting them off the ground, and getting the right people to make them happen. And my clients really are crying out for people. There aren't enough skills. They are looking locally. Some of them are finding it hard to find people locally. So the idea of getting people from offshore is still very well needed. And they work with us. They like to partner with us to secure workers from offshore. We've been in the market for 20 years. And they partner with us because they know that you've gone through this process. You're going to be, once you're talking to me, you're going to be visa ready. You would have spoken with Paul about how to get here, with Nasim and her team about your visa options. And then I take you to market and talk to, I guess I find out more about the nitty gritty about you and take you to market to some of our key clients.
And Hilary, just while you're there, Paul mentioned before about not sending CVs out now. Can you just discuss that a little bit more, because it is problematic?
Yes, it is problematic. And the more I speak to clients, the more they say their inboxes are getting inundated with offshore CVs. We just had a client in yesterday who said the same thing. They don't have time to process them. They don't know where you are in your process. So they're getting applications through from candidates who are just flicking off their CVs to everyone, thinking they might move to New Zealand in a couple of years. So they're really not processing those CVs. And it's really different, as you can imagine, if they are receiving someone who comes recommended, who has gone right through the process, and they can get the CV from me and a recommendation, and know that you're ready. We will still take you to market if you're not ready now, but you might be ready in 6 months. So we have those chats further on down the track. We work with specialists in this field, both clients and recruiters. So it's, yeah, as Scott was saying, I really think it's ideal if you don't do that for now. Work with me on that.
Cool, thank you. Okay, I'm sort of mindful of time. It's amazing. You want to talk about New Zealand, and you could be here for 2 or 3 hours, but we can't. What Hilary's been talking about is we're getting you ready, is that we want to do an eligibility assessment and a consultation with one of our advisors, including Paul in the UK. Paul, can you just run through what the eligibility assessment is, why it's required, and also the consultation process with yourself as the next step?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably the most important step, or one of the most important steps, because it's the step that actually gets you started. So everyone who's on this call is on this call because they're interested in moving to New Zealand, and that's great. But this call isn't going to get you to New Zealand on its own. You've got to do something to make it happen. And so what we offer, it's far more than an eligibility assessment. It is checking your eligibility to move under current immigration policy, and changes that we know are happening to immigration policy and all that sort of thing. It's also looking at your employment options. So it's a full visa and employment assessment, basically, and that generates an actual report that we email to you afterwards that clarifies your points and your visas and your options and everything else. But as part of that, you'll also get a one-to-one consultation with me. So that's basically a full hour-long call with me where I will listen to you, answer all the questions that you've got, and actually at the end of that call you will have all the information you need to move forward. You'll understand what the hurdles are, you'll know what how to overcome them. We'll talk about timeframes, we'll talk about visas, we'll talk about costs, we'll talk about kids, we'll talk about schools, we'll talk about whatever it is that you need to know to get you to move forward. So this isn't just, hey, you're eligible for a visa. That's obviously really, really important. This is actually far more than that. It's actually giving you a plan and a strategy to move forward to get you from a call like this or a webinar like this to being settled in New Zealand. And at the end of that call, you'll be crystal clear. It's an absolute no-brainer, basically.
Thanks, Paul. I think you're right. The cost, please. Everyone wants to know how much money they're spending on this.
Yeah. Look, I mean, and it's £250 for the full assessment and report and consultation with us. It is the first step in our process. It puts you on this road to New Zealand, and you know, I always say to people, you know, before you go and invest thousands of pounds and hundreds of hours and potentially go round and round in circles on the internet, invest a relatively small amount of money to get the information you need to put you on track. It's the best investment you can make when making this move. We've done thousands of these consultations over the years, as you know, Scott, and so many people have said if they hadn't have had that initial assessment and consultation, they wouldn't be in New Zealand right now.
Yeah, look, so to reiterate, look, as Paul said, we have been doing this for 20 years. We have refined our process over that time, tweaked it, and this initial assessment, just to see where you stand and what your options are, is the best spending of your money possible, because it's an insurance policy. And it may be that you don't qualify for whatever reason. Maybe you've got a health issue, or your partner does, or your child does, and that happens. Or maybe you've got some, character issues from your youth. Who knows? But all these things need to be known now, because they do impact how you can move down. And then spending that time with Paul, who literally has helped thousands of people. There's kind of nothing he doesn't know. So that getting that underway is your first start, and it gives you the clarity for the future. The person that will be doing that is Nassim, or her team anyway. So Nassim, can you just run through that eligibility assessment that you do from your perspective, and also in terms of what people can be doing now if they really know that they're committed to New Zealand? What sort of work can they be doing behind the scenes?
So the eligibility assessment is us, as Paul and Scott have mentioned, is basically us looking at everything. So we look at you, your family, everyone that's going to be migrating with you, or if your immediate family isn't, we still want to know who they are and what their circumstances are, because that can affect potential visa options for your family in the future. So the more information we have, the better we can look at your circumstances, put it against policy, and then also our own experience. I mean, I think one of the staff did some stats, and just from 2018, we've processed over 6,000 applications just in our offices. So we have a wealth of knowledge that we can reflect on, and we can say, oh, well, you know, this might look a little bit tricky on paper, but we know how to get over that because we've got this and this case to refer to, and we know how to sort that out. So then we come to you with that plan. And so we can say to you, these are the things that we're recommending is the pathway for you. This is the steps that we're going to take along the way. This is what you're going to have to do. One of the things that you can do to prepare is, like any government process, there's a lot of paperwork involved. I don't know why, but over the years, I've found that people from the UK in particular love to shred documents. I'm not sure why you guys do that. Birth certificates, qualification certificates. Hopefully you guys haven't done that. Or if you have, now would be the time to go and obtain your originals. Originals are almost always required, even if it's just a clear color scan if we're lodging the application online. So if you or your partner is in a registered occupation, start looking at the New Zealand registration process. That will help you with the job. It'll help you with settling. And then also these things take time. So the sooner you start the process, the better. Any qualifications that you've completed and you've lost that fancy certificate or your transcript, now would be the time to also start requesting that again, because you will need it at some point in the process.
And Nassim, from being realistic, if we've got, say, a quantity surveyor on here, or a project director, who meets all the criteria under the skilled migrant category, has 160 points, starting today, what is the timeline for them to arrive in New Zealand? More or less.
If we were to take COVID away, it would be a little bit different, but we're going to assume that COVID's still here because we don't know when it's leaving. And so in that case, we'd be looking at the border exemption. You'd allow between, you know, up to 3-4 months for that process. And then once onshore, you could start preparing the other applications. Normally, however, we find that it takes people up to a year to actually make the move to New Zealand with the right job offer, you know, considering the fact that you've got lives and children and families still back home, and, you know, you'll have things to tidy up before you move. So in general, you'd have to start, I would suggest, now to be here in a year's time.
And it's a really valid point. One sort of final point before I do a wrap up with everybody is the demand, as you can imagine, the demand for New Zealand is phenomenal. For whatever reason, you know, there's been a lot of emphasis on the fact that we're COVID free, and never before has there been such a demand for people to move to New Zealand. And even though there are a lot of jobs at the moment, there's probably not enough jobs for the amount of people that are applying. So our advice is get in early and be at the beginning, because if you leave it too late, policy changes. You know, immigration policy windows open and then they close. And with the amount of demand on the immigration system, you know, you could be A, having huge delays, or B, you know, missing out because policy changes, or all the jobs have been filled. So that's probably my strongest advice here is act now. Paul, would you like to say your final words and add anything to that?
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's quite simple. I just think back to 18 years ago when I was moving and I was sitting around on the internet and reading books and getting lots of information, but not actually moving forward. I was kidding myself. I thought I was moving forward because I was learning things, but I wasn't actually moving forward. And the message is you've got to do something to make this happen. Minimize your risks, maximize your opportunities. Start now if you're looking at moving within the next sort of 6 to 24 months, and we can get you on track.
So what do people need to do?
Just literally click on the link that I've just typed in, that will take you to a page where you can schedule the full assessment and consultation and everything with us. We'll also email that out to everybody, so check your emails, check your junk mail just in case it goes in there over the next couple of days. And yeah, I'd love to have one-to-one calls with anyone who's serious about making the move.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Paul. And Nassim, final words, please, as we wrap up for everybody. 8:29 here in Auckland.
Just want to reiterate what Paul said, is that the first step really is to do the eligibility assessment, or WAF as we call it, because that will then help outline the steps for you and your move to New Zealand, and what that looks like. So really, really important. So actually get started.
Thank you. And Hilary from the North Shore.
Hi. I think I just wanted to say to you guys that, and we've covered off this, but it is a good time to start now. I'm really keen for you guys to get through the process successfully so I can talk to my clients about you. The demand is high for them. And as Scott said, though, the demand for people coming into New Zealand is also high. So we want to work closely with you to make sure that whole process and journey is seamless for yourselves. I need to make sure it's seamless for my clients. And yeah, so I guess before I get to meet you, start that process with Paul, and then you'll get to meet Nassim's team and myself, and it's a win-win. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Hilary. Yeah, so just to finalise, I'm just going to take my phone here off the book, and I'm just going to show you our office. This is our office. There's quite a few desks there. That's all our immigration consultants in the background and over there. And one of the things I'd like to say is that most of our team are actually not from New Zealand. We've got people from all over the world here. And at some point, they've made a very brave step to take the next step. And if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have got here. So for most of you, or many of you on this webinar, you know, if you take this next step, one day you'll be down here and enjoying this lifestyle down here. So we hope you're brave, and we hope you take the next step, and we hope to see you down here. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to talk to you again. Good luck. See you later. Goodbye.